So let's just go through what came with the DragonLink system. First of all, two antennas. This long whip antenna for very long range. Hate to say long range. This ducky antenna, which bends here, which actually does, people say this is a mid-range antenna, but it's actually a very long-range antenna. The transmitter itself, I received two antennas and two receivers. Since this is my second DragonLink system, Mike gives away a free extra receiver when you buy your second system, or if you have a referral. Thanks, Mike. Very cool. So my strategy now is to get away from the Spectrum receivers and to move almost entirely to DragonLink. Can't do that quite yet. Got a lot of investments in the Spectrum receivers. However, this receiver is really only $100 at DragonLink, and I can sell my AR9000 for about $80, so it's really only about a $20 trade. Not a bad trade for the peace of mind of having a DragonLink. I know we've had a couple of problems with losing signal on the Spectrum receivers. All right, so let's just talk through how we're going to put this together and what goes where. So first of all, let's look at the transmitter. Now, since this is my second transmitter, I've already taken a white a marker and marked this T2. And if you look at the top of it, there is what's called a bind button, and actually that button is used to change the ID, calibrate it, bind, as well as operate failsafe. And so by pressing that button, you can get different into different modes. And here is the LED light that indicates which mode you're in, the antenna, and then a low and high power switch. On the bottom is where we put our cable, our connection to our radio. So the PPM signal, power and ground will come to here. If you have a head tracker, it will come to here. Don't have head tracking just yet. And then the data port I don't use, and I'm not sure. I guess this might be how he's updating firmware or doing some programming on the DragonLink system itself. So before I move on, the first thing I do is to put an antenna on the transmitter. You do not want to operate this transmitter without an antenna. Now typically I use the whip antenna, but when I'm on the bench, I use this antenna because it's a little easier to use, just sitting around the bench here. And I keep it on low power. But I put the antenna on right away so that I never turn power to the DragonLink without having an antenna on it. All right, so I'm going to set this antenna aside, but again, once I go to use the DragonLink, this is the antenna I'll be using. So let's look at the receivers. Well, let's start with the antennas here for the receivers. You can see I've actually already marked this with a little white paint marker on the end here and on the tip, and that is I'm identifying which of the antenna wires actually has to go in the upright position. And you can see this antenna comes out of the center signal, and then this wire comes from the ground around the outside. So you can see that. So what I do is, I'm old, I'll forget about it. I actually mark mine right away so I have an easy identifier. This is a short antenna wire because I'm going to put this on my quad, and my other one is going to go on Sandra's quad, on Mom's quad, my wife's quad. Yes, she has a quad. And so while we're here, I'll tell you what else I do is in the wind, you never want these antennas to come and blow back and get in this configuration because you will lose signal. So you always want this one that came out of the center to be upright and this one to be down. So what I do is this: I take a pen like this, and I blow the ink out of it, and I take the ink well, and I take a old credit card. Thanks to Ed from Experimental Air on this idea. I use these gift cards and credit cards for everything now. This actually happens to be an old insurance card put a hole in it, put some Velcro on it, and now this will be used to hold my antenna in a upright position, and this will actually Velcro down to the top of my quad. So I'll use it like this. And the bottom one will actually get to flop around a little bit. It actually hangs straight when I'm flying, but when I land it does have a little bit of a bend to it, but that's okay. So the important parts again on the antenna is making sure that you identify the center wire antenna, and it goes in the upright position, and then the other wire hangs down. And you know, get something to make it sturdy so that it does not flap back like this while you're flying, because you will lose signal. Okay, so those are the antennas. I'm going to set this aside for now. Let's talk about the receivers. So again, I got two receivers, and I actually going to set this one aside. I've already marked this one. So first of all, let's look at it. Here's the where the antenna attaches, and so there's I consider a top and a bottom. You can see I've marked this with my paint marker again, top. I've also marked it T2 so that I remember that it goes with this transmitter, because I do have two Dragon Link transmitters, and they are both the newer version with the same emblem on the front. So this one's marked T2, and then I've also marked on this top side 1 through 8. Now if you look at the bottom, it is marked channel 1 and channel 8, but again, I typically have this attached to my plane or my quad with this upright, so I really need to remember where my first signal and my 8th signal is. So it comes like this. It comes with a jumper across 5 and 6. You're going to use this jumper only during the calibration mode, which is what we're going to do next. But if we take a little more look at this, you can see on the back side is 3 lights: status, link, and power. And we're going to use those as we go through the calibration and bind and failsafe modes. So those are actually pretty bright, pretty easy to see once they're on. So let's look at our pin out here. So first of all, this is 1. This is be servo 1. This would be servo 8. And your signal pin is actually the top pin on this side. So the other is the power and ground, but your signal pin is important. That's the top pin up top here. So in other words, coming from your servo, that would be the lighter colored wire coming from your servo wire. All right, so that's pretty much the receiver. And again, I have 2 of them. Thanks again, Mike. That's very cool. Getting 2 Dragon Link systems or getting a referral gets you an extra receiver. So let's talk about the next step. The next step for me is to calibrate. And what calibration really is getting these 2 frequencies, getting the receiver really tuned to the transmitter frequency. It is 433 megahertz or 435 megahertz UHF frequency, but it's really tuning this, and it takes quite a bit of time, about 15 minutes to do this. So I'm going to connect my transmitter to my radio. I'll show you a little later how I get my transmitter actually connected to the DX7, which isn't that tough. It does take a little bit of modification. I still don't use the trainer port, even though in the version 2 the trainer port is supposed to be completely viable. It's such an easy mod. I don't worry about it, and I go for the PPM signal directly from inside the radio. I'll tell you how to do that in a minute. So I'm going to hook that up. But for my receiver, I'm actually going to take my electronic speed control. This is a Castle speed control that comes out of my T-Rex. I'm going to hook up this electronic speed control to T1, and you can see the light color wire is on the top. And then I have a battery to power this. I'm not going to turn that on just yet. So I'm all set. I'm actually going to turn this upside down, so on the bottom side, so we can watch the status, link, and power lights. Okay, so let's talk about the radio. I'm going to set this aside for a second here. The next step is to get through the calibration. Told you we have this set up. Actually, I do not have an antenna on this. I've actually calibrated these with the antenna on. I don't know that, it makes a difference. I've heard some folks talk about getting it so far away and having a dummy load on here. I'm going to calibrate this time without the antenna on at all on this. Always have the antenna on your transmitter. I do take my transmitter over to the kitchen counter about 14-15 feet away when I do this process. Alright, so I'm going to move this up just a little bit, get it out of my way here so I can show you what I'm going to do with my transmitter. I'm not powering that on just yet. So here's my DX7. Already has a Dragon Link on it. I have it unplugged. I am going to use this for my this radio for my calibration process for this transmitter. I'm going to plug it in here. Of course, the power is off on this. I plug my PPM power ground signal into here. And again, you can see this is connected to what used to be my trainer port. Now, this is actually not my trainer port. My trainer port, I lifted out of this section and it's sitting right here. And I have a stereo jack connected directly to the PPM power and ground signal inside my radio. So when I plug this in, I get power, ground, and PPM signal, and it disconnects it from my DX7. Another note, and I'll have another video on how to connect this, and actually, again, Experimental Air, or Ed from Experimental Air, has a great video. I followed his video to the T, works great. Only difference is I didn't drill a hole in the side. I used the trainer port just for simplicity there for me. So the other thing I wanted to show you is I took the antenna off. It just, for me, I use the holder for the Dragon Link on the back here, and it's just simpler for me. It doesn't get in my way. Now, I've ordered a cap for this from Hong Kong. It hasn't come yet. It's been forever. And when I get that, I'll cut this off a little lower and put that cap on. Been waiting forever for that cap. Whatever. You guys know the story there. So right now, I have the Dragon Link plugged into my DX7. I'm going to set this upright and show you what happens when we get the power. So I'm on low. I've got my antenna on. I'm going to turn my DX7 on, and I get a green light. That's good, because if I have a green light, that means it's getting the PPM signal from the radio. It also has power, and it's getting directly from the radio as well. Alright, so I'm going to turn this off for now. Alright, so to get into calibration mode, I'm plugged in from my radio to my DX7 transmitter. I'm sorry, to my Dragon Link transmitter, to my radio. I have my antenna on. I'm going to hold down the bind button and turn the radio on, and I'm going to hold it down until this light turns red. Here's orange, and then there's red. I let it go, and it's flashing red and green. Now I'm going to move this over to another counter so I'm at least 10-12 feet away from my receiver. Okay, so I have my my transmitter transmitting. I have my pins, jumper pin in 5 and 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I'm going to set this upside down so I can watch the LED lights. I'm going to power this up. And I see a status light, a link light, and a power light. I'm going to look at the time. It's 5 after 3. We're going to let this sit for 15 minutes. So right now, my transmitter on my Dragon Link is flashing green and red, and we're going to let that calibrate.
Which ones were those lights? Your hand was in the way earlier.
Green. Okay, so status, link, and power are all on.
Okay.
Okay? And the calibration process is going to take 15 minutes, and what it's doing is this frequency, this receiver rather, is tuning to the transmitter's frequency. All right, so in the calibration process that we started just a couple minutes ago, you can see that the green and red light is flashing on and off. So we are in calibration mode. I have plenty of battery life on my radio, and we're going to let this sit for 15 minutes. And I'm about 12 feet away from my receiver right now. Again, I've done it very close to my receiver, and I've done it with the receiver antenna on, but you know, this time I'm a little further away. I have never had a problem with the calibration process. It has always worked. I've always let it go at least 15 minutes though as well. All right. Okay, so my receiver and my transmitter have been in calibration mode for about 15 minutes now. Now I'm going to power cycle this off. I'm going to remove the jumper from 5 and 6, and you only use that jumper during calibration, not during bind mode. I'm going to set this back a little bit. I'm going to grab my radio. Stay there. You can see my radio is still in calibration mode. I'm going to power it off. Now we're going to check it. So to do that, we're going to cycle it back on. Well, let's just cycle it back on. I'm going to turn that on. It's green. Set that down. Cycle this back on. You see it has power. So I'm going to cycle this off. Cycle this off. So now I've taken this off, taken the jumper off. I power cycled this, and I powered cycled the transmitter. And now we're going to go to bind mode. Now to go to bind mode, I'm going to hold the bind button down. I'm going to turn my radio on. And wait till it flashes yellow or orange. Oh, there it is. It's orange. That's going to be flashing orange. Now I'm going to plug in my receiver and status and link light. The link light should come on. Okay, now I'm going to, or the status light is on and the power light is on. Now I'm going to...
Which one's the status light?
The status light is green, power light is red, the link light is actually off. I'm going to disconnect it, power cycle this off, power cycle this off. I'm going to turn this back on. Get my green light. I haven't touched the bind button. I'm going to turn this back on. And now, oh, I should be linked. Oh, there I am. I'm linked. So now I'm going to disconnect this again. My link light is on. My power light is on. It all bound very well. Let me disconnect this. I'm going to grab a servo. And I'm going to put it in the white colored wires up my signal wire. Put it right here in the third position. I'm going to, I still have my transmitter on. I'm going to power up. I see my link light is on.
Flatten your hand out so I can see the lights.
Sorry, I see my link light is on. And now I'm going to test the servo. That is my elevator servo. And you can see that the link is on, the link light is on, and my elevator. So, the calibration process worked rather smoothly. The bind process worked rather smoothly. And one thing that you may want to check is trying a servo on every one of your channels. I typically do that just so that I do it on the bench before I get it into one of my aircraft, because of course then you got to take it apart. Alright, so I'm going to remove my power from my receiver, and I'm going to turn my power off of my transmitter. And in one of the next videos, I'll show you the modification of Sandra's, my wife's DX7 radio, and how to do the internal modification. Again, pretty simple. And Ed from Experimental Air, you know, he's the guy that his video is one that I watched Danny from RC Test Flights does it a slightly different way, and then there was a guy at I believe it was FPV Labs that had a good article on it. But it's all the same thing. It's a pretty simple modification. All right, that's it.